Yet another stabbing incident in the U.S. At least 8 people have been injured in Colorado Springs. The incident unfolded when police discovered 2 stabbing victims. As officers searched for the suspect, they found more victims. Police found the suspect about a mile away from the original scene and arrested him. An investigation is underway, but police have said the stabbings appear to be random. No fatalities have been reported so far. Peru detained over 100 Venezuelans when its criminal investigation unit raided a Lima area hotel spa, seizing guns and drugs. A total of 124 people, including 114 Venezuelans, were detained at the hotel, which authorities said functioned as a base of operations for organized crime. 4 Colombians and 6 Peruvians were also detained. Police say they uncovered the site after following a suspect believed to have killed a man at a fast food place last week. Lebanese police officers scuffled with protesters as they attempted to block a main road in central Beirut known as the Ring Bridge. The protesters sat on the ground attempting to block several roads in the Tabriz area next to the Ring Bridge that connects East and West Beirut. Protesters first took to the streets in October over proposed new taxes. But the nationwide demonstrations quickly grew into calls for an end to the rule of the political elite that has run the country since the 1975 till 1990 civil war, which ended back in 1990. Ukrainian presidential office released a video showing Ukrainian experts examining Boeing 737 crash site some days after the accident. Iran acknowledged on January 11th that its military had shot down a Ukrainian plane, killing all 176 aboard in a disastrous mistake, saying air defenses were fired in error while on alert after Iranian missile strikes on U.S. targets in Iraq. Iran had denied for days after crash that it had brought down the airliner, although a top Revolutionary Guards commander said on Saturday that he told authorities about the unintentional missile strike the day it happened. Boeing newly appointed CEO David Calhoun took over as the 3rd CEO in the past 5 years, but that was the easy part. It is up to him to deal with the crisis caused by 2 crashes and the grounding of the company's best-selling plane. 737 MAX jetliner has caused dozens of lawsuits after families of the crash victims that sued the aerospace company. Calhoun is aiming to restore the company's battered reputation and the impression that it put profit over safety. The Syrian government has opened 3 crossing points on the front line of its war with rebels. Bashar al-Assad's forces, along with its closest ally Russia, are pounding on one of the last rebel-held areas. The crossing point is on the border of Al-Hadar, which is a neighboring village with the Idlib province. The crossing points are equipped with buses, ambulances, medical supplies and shelters. Recently, Russia and its allies halted airstrikes in Idlib as a ceasefire which came into force, although few were optimistic the truce would hold. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said during a visit to Jordan that his country's troops will remain in Iraq for the foreseeable future. Speaking at a news conference with his Jordanian counterpart, Maas said an agreement with the Iraqi authorities must be reached and that while Germany would respect the wishes of the Iraqi government, it should be noted that the war against IS was not yet won. Maas also addressed ongoing German efforts to help broker a ceasefire in Libya. Germany plans to hold a summit aimed at plotting a path to peace in Libya on January 19th. German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced the summit, adding that The United Nations would lead talks if a meeting were to take place in Berlin. Merkel said Libya's warring parties would need to play a major role if a solution was to be found. Armed conflict in Colombia could heat up in 2020, and there could even be bombings in cities if dissidents from the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, follow through with plans to pressure the government into a new peace deal, an expert mediator has confirmed. Henry Acosta has traversed the Andean country for more than a decade to help bring the FARC and government together for peace talks that eventually lead to a 2016 deal. The 71-year-old economist based his assessment on the declaration made by some former FARC commanders who returned to arms last year. They cited what they called a breakdown in the accord, which ended the FARC's part in a conflict that has killed more than 260,000 people and displaced millions. Representatives of Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan met in Washington hoping to resolve disputes over a giant hydropower dam on the Nile. The three countries remained deadlocked after 2 days of talks in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, last week over the filling and operation of the $4 billion dam that Ethiopia is building on the Nile. The three parties agreed to the timeline for talks after a meeting in Washington with U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and World Bank President David Malpass in November. Incumbent Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo finalized a bid for a second term in office by visiting a cafe in one of the capital's less chic neighborhoods. Hidalgo, who has been holding Paris's top post since 2014, decided to hold her first campaign event at the Porte de la Chapelle district, 2 months ahead of France's municipal elections. She said she has put ecology at the forefront of her campaign platform, adding that she aims to establish more housing in the city amid the difficulties, high prices and lack of options. According to the most recent poll conducted by Survey Institute IFOP on December 10th, Hidalgo is favoured to maintain her seat with 22% of the total votes. Saudi Arabia, OPEC's de facto leader, will work for oil market stability at a time of heightened US-Iranian tension and wants to see sustainable prices and demand growth. Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said it was too early to talk about whether the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies would continue with production curbs set to expire in March. Oil prices held steady as the United States and Iran appeared to retreat from the brink of full-blown confrontation after a U.S. drone strike killed an Iranian commander in Baghdad on January 3rd, and Iran retaliated with missiles launching against U.S. bases in Iraq. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, or rather Abe Shinzo, arrived in Abu Dhabi as part of a Middle Eastern tour aimed at diffusing tensions in the Gulf. Abe Shinzo, who flew in from Saudi Arabia, was welcomed by Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed. He is expected to travel to Oman next after his visit to the United Arab Emirates. A Japanese foreign ministry official said Japan, Saudi Arabia and the UAE should work together to de-escalate the tense situation in the Gulf. The family of the lone crew member to die in a fiery scuba boat disaster that killed all 33 passengers off the Southern California coast last year sued the vessel's owner in the federal court. The lawsuit by the family of Ali Kurtz claims the owners of the Conception knew the boat was unsafe and lacked required smoke detectors and fire equipment. Kurtz was a new crew member and the only one sleeping with the passengers in the berth below deck when the fire broke out in the middle of the night on Labor Day, while the boat was anchored near an island off Santa Barbara. The cause of the blaze still remains under investigation. An endangered newborn right whale spotted with grievous injuries to its head off the Georgia coast is unlikely to survive, though scientists may try to inject the calf with antibiotics using a syringe fired from an air gun if they can safely get close enough. Foggy weather along the coast was delaying efforts to locate the wounded baby whale and its mother by plane. The calf was first seen from the air and a boat crew got close enough near seeing for scientists to investigate injuries. Smoke and ash continue to billow from the Philippines' Taal volcano. Red-hot lava spewed from the volcano near the capital of Manila as tens of thousands of people fled through heavy ash and frightening tremors. Meanwhile, the authorities made plans to evacuate hundreds of thousands more for fear of a bigger eruption. Clouds of ash from the Taal volcano reached Manila 65 kilometers to the north, forcing the shutdown of the country's main airport with more than 500 flights cancelled. A magnitude of 5.9 quake shook Puerto Rico, causing millions of dollars of damage along the island's southern coast. Where previous quakes have toppled homes and schools, the U.S. Geological Survey said that the quake hit 8 miles southeast of Guanica at a shallow depth of 3 miles. It was followed by several aftershocks, including a magnitude of 5.2. No injuries or deaths were reported so far. Meanwhile, California is sending a group of 35 disaster specialists to Puerto Rico to assist in their disaster management.
Right, so...
Alan Robert, the free climber dubbed the French SPIDERMAN, scaled the total 48-story skyscraper in Paris to demonstrate support for workers striking against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plans. Robert, who's aged 57, stood with both arms aloft after reaching the summit of the 187-meter-high tower, which stands in the French capital's business district, La Défense. France has been dogged by strikes and street protests for more than a month as unions push back against Macron's drive to streamline the pension system and avert a looming €17 billion pension deficit. Robert has climbed more than 100 structures, including the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the world's tallest building, the Burj Al Khalifa in Dubai.
Good.